Hi guys, I'm Ahana and welcome back to my channel. Now, in my last couple of videos, I've been talking a lot about fundraising, and I've actually had a lot of questions from you asking, what do you do in an investor meeting? And in fact, what tips do you have for pitching investors? So that's what I'm going to be covering in this video. If that sounds good to you, then keep on watching. Okay, so I'm just going to jump straight into my top 5 tips. The first is that in your pitch, you should try to tell a story. People have a much easier time remembering a story than they do data here and there. And in order to really leave an impression on an investor, a story can be a great way of doing that. When thinking about this story that you're curating for investors, you want to think about some key things. The first is, what is your personal connection with the problem that you're solving? Oftentimes, this can be a really powerful part of the story and actually help the investor gain conviction around why you're the right person to be solving the problem that you're tackling. The second, and closely related, is what's your unique insight into this problem? From the experiences that you've had dealing with this or observing it, what have you learned that's not obvious to everyone else? Tie this into your story. And the third is, why do you feel passionately about it? Now, just saying that you're passionate about the problem isn't enough to convey that. You need to make it believable. And there are many ways of communicating passion, whether that's just through your temperament and how you tell a story, or perhaps you talk about something very personal and something very close to your heart. These may be things that resonate with the investor that you're speaking to. And given investors see so many pitches every day, by telling your story, you really increase your chances of that investor remembering you and potentially even vouching for you when it comes to making an investment. My second tip is to have a very well-defined problem statement and solution. Oftentimes, the investors that you're meeting are not going to be experts in the field that you're solving a problem in. And as such, you need to make sure that you can explain what it is that you're tackling in very simple yet compelling terms. When you're looking to frame your problem, investors tend to be looking for one of 3 things. A, this is a problem that costs people a lot of money. B, this is a problem that costs people a lot of time. Or C, this is a problem that people run into very, very frequently. So to give you an example, let's say that you're building a tool to help musicians transcribe their music. You need to remember that there's a chance the investor that you're speaking to has never even picked up a musical instrument. So how do you explain why this is such a painful process to someone that knows nothing about it? And then along the same vein, you want to clearly explain how you're solving that problem specifically. And again, remember, you may have been working extremely hard on this problem for a very long time, so you'll know the ins and the outs and your solution might seem very, very obvious. But chances are, if you've really built something innovative, this is the first time the investor is actually hearing about it. So you need to make sure that you can very clearly articulate how you are solving this problem. And the way to do that is making sure that first and foremost, you really understand your business. And if there is anything that you're uncertain about, you need to make sure that at least in your head, you have some clarity around the way that you're solving your problem. And now my third tip, and very much related to the point that I just touched on. Before you've even pitched, you need to have asked yourself the really hard questions about your company. The reason that this is incredibly important is because normally after giving your pitch to the investor, they will allocate time to ask you questions about your business. Some investors don't even have that pitch, they just delve straight into questions. And they'll likely be delving into difficult questions such as your competitors or weaknesses in the business. And it's completely normal for every business to have weaknesses. So the important thing here is that 1, you haven't lied to yourself. You're very aware of what your weaknesses are. And 2, what your plans are to overcome them and how you will deal with difficult situations as and when they arise. Remember, when you're an early stage company, investors don't have a whole load of data to go off of when making a decision. So it's really about understanding you as a founder. And if you get defensive or if you get rattled by some difficult questions, that can often send a negative signal to the investor that either you're lacking the self-awareness to analyze and critique your own company, or you just aren't confident in your answers, which is also not a good sign. And it's by no means a pleasant exercise to sit down and try and criticize anything of your business, and being honest with yourself about the things that are hard is not an easy thing to do. But it's better and easier to do that on your own with your laptop and prepare, rather than have these questions for the first time in front of an investor where the stakes are actually high. And it'll also just make you feel so much more confident going into a pitch where you've already asked yourself, the worst possible questions that you could get. You will be prepared for anything that they throw at you. My fourth tip is to know your numbers. Numbers that you should probably know are your market size. And with the market size, you should be ready to do a market sizing calculation depending on how many people there are in your market and how much money you can make from each of them. Something simple is fine, but know the numbers, and know the numbers for the calculation too. Also, if you have customers, you should know how many, and if you're making money, you should know how much. Even if the numbers are super simple or easy for you to recall, knowing them and saying them with confidence will fill the investor with confidence in you. It really demonstrates a sense of professionalism and just being very switched on and able to give data when asked for it. And the fifth and final tip is that practice makes perfect. I don't know a single person that has absolutely nailed the pitch the first time they've done it. In a way, a pitch is a performance. You need to tell a story, you need to know your numbers, you need to be very switched on and engaged with the person that you're talking to. And that's not an easy thing to do. But the more you practice, the more feedback you get, the more you can keep improving and securing that funding as you progress. If you have co-founders, they can be great people to practice your pitch with, especially because they know the business too. So if you're perhaps not highlighting something really impressive about the company that you probably should be, that's helpful feedback that they can give you. And similarly, given that you have that relationship, they're also more likely to be honest with you if there are parts of the pitch that are weaker. So the first practice I'd do if I was in a team with co-founders is definitely practice it and curate the pitch with your co-founder. The second is, if you have access to advisors or mentors, or even if you don't, you can cold message people on LinkedIn. And actually that's what I did when I got started. I didn't have a huge network in VC, but I actually reached out to people working in VC just saying, look, I have an idea and I want to walk you through it. Would you be open to a quick call? And as with anything, as I talk about a lot on this channel, you will face rejection, you will have people ignore your messages, but you get lucky sometimes and people respond. And these are low stakes meetings. You go into it not saying that you're pitching them, not asking for money, but just asking for feedback and advice. And you'd be surprised that people who are seasoned in the field tend to want to give back and actually help the next generation of entrepreneurs. So as long as you go in with an open mind, you take on the feedback and don't get defensive when given feedback, people will be more than willing to help you. Now, I hope these 5 tips will help you when it comes to your pitching. And for full disclosure, these are basic tips. The more advanced you get, the more strategies you can employ. But for those of you just getting started on your entrepreneurial journey and really have no idea how to pitch an investor, I hope these tips help you. Alright, so that's all for this video. Please give this video a like and subscribe to my channel if you enjoy content like this. But otherwise, thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one.